So yes, welcome to the eighth launch event for um the anthology Dreams Before Extinction, 10 Years of Dark Matter Women Witnessing. And tonight is our penultimate event, the next to the last, and the section is called The Music of Grief. And I want to keep my remarks very short because there are eight of you tonight. Erica will be showing up later on. Everyone else is here. And the title of the section, The Music of Grief, comes from an essay by Cynthia Travis, who will be our first reader. And Cynthia is also going to be opening up for us tonight. Um, just one word about the recordings of the previous events. You can find them all on the Dark Matter website page. But before handing it over to Cynthia, I want to talk about the very first piece in the section, which is by Kim Chernin, who would be just thrilled to be here and reading from it if she were alive. She died in 2020. And the piece is called Mother of Us, A Prayer for Healing. And the very first paragraph of that piece we chose as an epigraph or a preface to the whole book. And I want to just read that to open us up before Cynthia opens us up even more. And I also want to say that it couldn't be a more perfect moment for this event because I don't know about you, but I keep bumping into people who are grieving in the last few days. Anyway, the sun is in Scorpio and the moon is in Cancer. So we're in it right now. It's a really good moment to be talking about grief. And I'll just read you the first paragraph of Kim's prayer, which she herself said, I cannot claim this writing of my as my own. It just came through her. And she didn't even understand it when it first came through her. She kept stopping her car and turning off the road because she was tired and finding herself writing on the dashboard. And then she just pulled it all together into something that didn't even make sense at first. This is the first paragraph. Mother of Us, a prayer for healing. Grief, grief unutterable in the trade winds of your passage. We are here upon a shadow's generosity, ley lines undone, winds burrowing through the parched soil that say not whither or whence we wander, why we are here, and what we have come to fathom. Is there work for our hands, the last drop having fallen? Is it the beginning or the end of prayer? Let the tall grass teach us to speak your name, bent low beneath your urgency. Mother of God, Mother of us, Mother of what is, restore us. So I will now hand this over to Cynthia.
That was really gorgeous to hear. Thank you. Um, so Lisa asked if I would be willing to find an interesting quote and read it and get us into a brief meditation. And then I'm going to read a couple paragraphs from my piece. And soon after that, I'm going to hop off the Zoom because I'm really pushing to finish the manuscript that I've been working on for my entire life. So I'm sorry for that, but I'm glad it's being recorded. Okay, Martin Prechtel from his book called The Smell of Rain on Dust, Grief and Praise. Grief doesn't go away. To have caused and witnessed suffering and loss of life means grief is eagerly awaiting your decision as to what direction it will take in your destiny. To make more life were to make more death and violence. So after I read that, I really started thinking about how to make more life. Usually in my meditations and prayers, my heart is so heavy, I often pray for the destruction to stop. So the question of how to make more life was an interesting one. And now I've started sending nourishment and love and gratitude to what is intact, to all the unseen beings and energies that keep life going and that restore us, as the earlier reading said. So my suggestion is that we take just a minute to be brief and just go into a place of offering and sending that love and gratitude and sustenance to everything that's intact, whether it's ecological systems or places or forests or rivers or spirits, the little people, the microbes, whatever that might be. So I'm going to just keep time on my phone and ring this bell to get us started, and when we're done, here we go. Are we back? So here's the opening of that piece called The Music of Grief. In January 1999, I attended a peace building course at Eastern Mennonite University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. I was a fish out of water, a Jewish mediator come to learn about conflict transformation from a group of innovative, intrepid churchgoers. Harrisonburg is a small town studded with contrasts. To get there, one flies into Washington, D.C., and drives south and west through famous Civil War battlefields. Once there, it's common to pull up at a stoplight alongside a horse and buggy driven by Mennonites in top hats and tails, long dresses and lace caps. The folks that run the conflict transformation program at Eastern Mennonite are modern pacifists with a history of volunteering in disaster relief and what they call accompaniment in places around the world where there's great suffering. After World War II, they decided that there must be something they could do before disaster strikes. Proactive peace building was born. My roommate, Jean, and her husband had been missionaries in what was then called the Congo. We both arrived late at night, weary from our long journeys, I from New Mexico and she from Minnesota. Explaining that she wanted to take a bath, Jean stepped into our shared bathroom to run the water. I remember how the steam billowed up into the cold night air and the thrumming of the water as it poured into the old porcelain tub. The bathroom was accessed from a tiny, low-ceilinged hallway that linked our two bedrooms. Across from the bathroom door was a cubby with a black plastic dial phone where I sat waiting for a call from my boyfriend. I felt awkward and trapped and intrigued in spite of myself as Jean stood in the doorway with steam rising behind her and began to speak. Her husband was a church elder whose job included receiving war-weary local church dignitaries and listening to their stories. Sometimes Jean served tea or sat quietly nearby. I remember the adrenaline surge of my dislike of missionaries, which I still have, but it's softer now, and my impatience with her gentle equanimity. Perhaps I sensed that something ominous was taking shape. Too late, the story was pouring out of her, so I listened. Most afternoons, she and her husband would sit outside in the shade with their Congolese church guests at a low formica table with broken chairs. One by one, the men told their stories and began to weep. As they spoke, their tears became so copious they flooded the tabletop. Tears sheeted into their laps and poured onto the ground. As her husband leaned in to listen, Jean would wipe the table and wring out the towel. When she finished telling the story, she shrugged. We may have hugged, I don't remember. I sat, stunned, as she went into the bathroom, turned off the faucet, and closed the door.
Thank you, Cynthia. The way this is going to work, our next reader is Elena, but we're going to stop after a few of you have read, and in case there are responses that want to come in. And I don't know if you can stay for that, Cynthia, but some people might have some things to say about your piece, so that would be great if you could. So, where are you, Elena? There you are. Your name is very strange. It's a bunch of letters and numbers.
I don't know why that is. I'm incognito. I was going to suggest that if Cynthia has to leave, you could put her first, the comments first, and then I could read after her. After that,
Well, I think Cynthia's willing to wait a little bit. She said she would wait. I think she'd like to hear what you have to say.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to listen to everybody, but I know that I'm on a schedule to get this done, so I'm going to stick to it. But thank you. That was so really
Okay.
generous.
Thank you. Your piece was overwhelming. It was very powerful.
Thank you.
So I'll just go ahead and read a little bit. I know I'm being timed, so just
We're not timing you, you're timing yourself.
okay. It is 7:18. Okay. My piece is called Gardening in the Motor City. The Motor City is a place where less than 60% of the people own a car, despite a miserable public transportation system. It's nestled in the center of the Great Lakes, where over 20% of the world's fresh water comes from, but 40,000 of its residents have had their water shut off by the post-bankruptcy internal IMF scheme. It's important to note, for those who may not know, race rules Detroit. Every single development, every single ordinance, every single action by the banks and the nonprofits is informed by race and racism. The city of Detroit is 85% Black and has a white mayor. Detroit Public Schools is 90% Black and has a white superintendent. Neither the mayor nor the school superintendent is beloved here, except by bankers, contractors, and nonprofits and philanthropists, most of whom do not live in Detroit. and none of whom has a child in Detroit Public Schools. Currently, there's an effort to change the state taxing authority constitutionally to grant the mayor alone the ability to levy taxes. I'll take a moment to say we defeated it handily. A small ragtag army, of which I'm a proud foot soldier, called Detroiters for Tax Justice, has warded this off at the state legislature, but we know it's not going away. The new scheme would tax land where once homes stood before banking orgy of foreclosures, would tax where homes stood before the banking orgy of foreclosures and the demolition derby that provided so many cutbacks and kickbacks, as a result of which we have acres and acres of vacant land here. The mayor would like to tax the vacant land and give more relief to developers to build. I live in the hot gentrified neighborhood of Corktown. It's historically zoned so that homes can't easily be demolished, and is in most of the city. Corktown is a place where white people feel safe, and humble frame working class cottages are affordable now only to white people. At least that's who's only moving here, although it was historically an Irish and Mexican neighborhood. And I'm an Irish Mexican, so there were so many of us here at one time that we actually had our own festival. I became a gardener out of rage. When the casino gambling industry finally broke past Detroit's hardy resistance and won at the ballot, it brought 3 casinos. Motor City, located where Wonder Bread Factory once was, Greektown, and MGM. I fought casinos with all my heart and was demoralized when they prevailed. In a proud city where everyone wanted a good union job, everyone who wanted one could have one, and we actually produced goods, cars, we got casinos. Where people could lose their life savings in one night, where a 911 operator was killed by her husband when she lost their retirement funds, homes lost, utilities shut off, less food on the table for the kids, all for the hope of winning big. The house always wins. I went to a work conference out of town. A man who had a shop next to the hotel kept asking me to come in. It was a shop of herbs, oils, incense, and semi-precious stones. I wasn't interested, but I did promise him before I headed back to Detroit I would stop in. He was a man from India. He asked me what ailed me. I shrugged him off and told him I have little money and less time, and what did he want with me? He asked me what was bothering me. My response shocked me. The mayor died. I'm sorry. I love Coleman Young the way Christians love Jesus. We got casino gambling now. My city is turning into Babylon, and people gamble instead of work. The man said, "What do you do to heal yourself?" I had no answer. I was a single parent, a union representative for SEIU, and I was engaged in battle at every turn. Ex-husbands, boyfriends, bosses, grievances. I said, sometimes I garden, I read. The stranger told me to garden as if my life depended on it. When I got home, I got a shovel and dug up my front lawn. Without a plan, I just took out all the grass. Next, I went to Belle Isle, our beautiful island park, and dug up native plants. I knew them because I walked by them all the time and they needed no watering. I brought them home for days on end and planted them in my yard. Sometimes I would ask friends for transplants, and so it began to fill it all in. Soon there was no grass anywhere in my yard, no watering, which became helpful when the water grew too expensive and we could hardly afford it. My garden is filled with marigolds for Day of the Dead, pollinators which invite butterflies wildly, dozens of rose bushes from an erstwhile admirer, a wild rose tree that doubles as security fence with its ruthless thorns. Since the death of my beloved cousin in 2020, I went to her garden and dug up her things. I brought them here to my garden following another death of another cousin. I have planted Rose of Sharon in her honor. My small yard has become a series of memorial gardens. No longer do I weep as I plant. I think that most people's gardens are actually memorial gardens, even if they are not conscious of it. I'm particularly conscious because when someone close to me dies, I take something from their garden and plant it in mine. This has helped to heal my broken heart.
Thank you, Elena. I told you the moon's in Cancer. Okay, so how do you feel? Would people like to respond now before Cynthia leaves, or I don't know, anyone have anything they want to say about either of those pieces? If not, we'll go on to Ruth, but we might lose Cynthia. So,
Well, I'm just gobsmacked with both pieces. Cynthia, I have read and loved your newsletters, and I miss them, and so it's beautiful to hear you and see you this evening. Thank you for what you shared, and wiping the table will always stay with me. And this other piece with the garden, of course, that touches my heart dearly. I'm a flower essence producer and have a huge garden, and I'm just in the process of putting all 350 flower essences onto the land and letting the whole business go. But the intimacy with the land and the garden has been with me until it snowed today, where I can't do this anymore. But I just loved how you wove the political, the emotional, the personal, and the land and the grieving all into one beautiful, beautiful tapestry. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Andrea. Um, well, just before you leave, Cynthia, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but just could you just say a word about how the grief becomes music?
Ah, yeah.
And if I'm putting you on the spot, just say no.
I was thinking about that as I was preparing, and I was asking myself, where did that phrase come from, and why did I call it that? And I think it was just one of those downloads. It just sort of appeared.
Well,
And
it feels so true, but
it's so
I
true.
don't know why.
I mean, the music of grief it's everything from praise, as Martine Prechtel, talks a lot about that, meaning that the praise that we give to what we lose or who we lose is an expression of love and how much we cherish them.
Mm.
And that there's a balancing that needs to occur between grief and praise because they're related. And then I think that keening and weeping and crying and
Yeah.
all of that, it has its own music
Mhm.
and its own melodies. And so that's what I hear in my head when I think about it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Maybe a chorus, praise chorus, grief chorus, and they're so closely related.
Hmm. Yeah, Ruth?
So if I can just say something about it, I mean, I want to hear more from your reading, but I can also go look at the piece. But it's great to see you. But to me, I found that the equivalence between grief and music is so powerful because when I'm sitting with the oaks, which you'll see in a minute, and sing to them, it's like the music holds the grief.
Mm.
And the music um, creates compassion and it creates container and what's my computer doing now? And it um, I think in a way it almost synthesizes the praise and the grief. I mean, it holds them together in the power of song and it really opens heart.
Well, that's a wonderful opening to what you're about to read, Ruth. Would you like to? And Cynthia, if you need to take your leave, we will understand.
I'm going to listen to you, Ruth.
Well,
And off I go. Yeah.
So mine is actually mostly visual. So of course my computer isn't working. But it's been that kind of day. So, Chris, if you could, I just did it as well, Chris will be doing it. Um, and you can go to the first slide. Can you? Uh-oh. Chris, you're okay. That's the second one. Is it possible to go to the first one? Great. Is it gonna work now? You're muted, Chris. Okay, so go to the first one and then I'll start. Okay, so the piece that's in the anthology is called Cascading Memorials, Places to Mourn, and it's about this exhibition, which I did even before I wrote the piece, which was a decade ago, and I would write really differently now. So I'm going to read teeny excerpts from the piece while I show visuals and end with a current visual. So please go to the next slide. So Felipe Arias declared that in industrialized, urbanized, and technology advanced areas of the Western world, except for the death of the statesman, society has banished death. He was writing in the 80s. And I wonder what is lost when a society has the hubris to deny impermanence, attempting to banish death from public consciousness. Consider that in the Sutra of Buddha teaching to the seven daughters, he says, if one knows that what is born will end in death, then there will be love. So, convinced of the need for public mourning, I began to create memorials to specific places that were undergoing rapid change. Next slide. So I returned to this place, which I started here, walking the same paths frequently to develop an intimate relationship. Next, in my photographs, instead of the heroic sublime, which is frequently invoked in landscape photography, which I feel distances the viewer, I present a fragmented, layered perspective of dynamic systems undergoing rapid change. And to me, carefully assembling photographs is an act of reverence, respect, and love. Next. So it's not grief, but the fear of feeling the absence of sadness or rage, which I feel leads to paralysis, despair, and psychic numbing. Judith Butler argues, without the capacity to mourn, we lose the keen sense of life we need in order to oppose violence. Next. Tears are cleansing, an invitation to vulnerability. Grief allows us to see with new eyes, to make meaning or sense of the loss and take action. As Joanna Macy reframes this, pain for the world is a call to adventure. Healing testimony as bearing witness, many bear witness, prompts a desire for explanation, for autopsies. Any answer prompts more questions and increasing awareness of the complexity of ecological systems, leading to the reestablishment of the network of ecological connections. And in this heightened sense of interconnectivity with those with whom we grieve, with a wider sense of self intertwined with the environments in which we live, we can find strength, which has been so true here, even as I've sat bearing honor to the process of decomposition. So next. So I wanted to share a current project that's come out of all this. When I was in Santa Fe this fall, I was talking to people about the massive loss of pinyon pines, which began 2 decades ago and continues to this day. And I was very struck what I heard, which are some of the texts that you can see on the back wall here. I was in shock. It was just devastating. It seemed like they'd all gone. Another one said, at one point around 2004, we had to get rid of the dead trees because of the fire hazard. So we rented a big dumpster, and some people went out with chainsaws and cut the dead trees down. Then we piled them in the dumpster, and I remember stomping on them to push them down. There were hundreds of dead trees, more than could fit. And I was really struck, you can go to the next slide, when I talked to people about how palpable these feelings were from 20 years ago for the people who was there, but how there had been no public acknowledgement. So I came up with this prototype of a project that I hope to create. So what I'm asking people to do here is to make an offering to the pinyon pines, and eventually these offerings will be made on paper that's made with the mycorrhizae from the sites. Then next. And then I'm reading what's on the paper, so don't worry if you can't see it. So then you roll up these papers, and before you roll them up, I've offered people the opportunity to take a photograph of them so that everyone can read them on a website. And then you roll these papers up and put them in these holes, which are like the woodpecker holes in the pinyon pines, and then the whole sculpture will decompose. So I'm hoping to create these in several places in Santa Fe. So this is where Cascading Memorials has come 10 years later. So thank you.
Beautiful.
Wow. That's wonderful to see. I mean, the way that everything is integrated now, it feels like the micro you I couldn't even imagine it, but the way that they give homage to the trees is you're using part of the substance of the trees to help them do it. That's amazing.
Mhm.
I don't know. I really honestly don't know if we should open it up right now or if we should just proceed. You know what? Let's proceed to Kristen, who is also going to be writing about trees. And then maybe after Kristen, we'll open it up. How's that?
Too much sky. Across from one of the nearby farms, a tired white house sits close to the road. Once its most distinguishing characteristic was the pair of giant maple trees whose lush, full canopies overhung the road on one side and shaded the house on the other, their crowns reaching high above the roof line. They were cut down 2 years ago, which I discovered one bright March morning when I rounded the bend and didn't recognize the view. An expansive curtain of cloudless blue, no longer interrupted by twin silhouettes as it dropped down to meet the flat brown carpet of winter lawns and empty fields. There was too much sky where the trees used to be. The maples were an outpost for red-tailed hawks scanning the fallow fields for food, and for crows meeting to discuss the day's business. They were home to families of squirrels who would race down their trunks and across the road toward the farm and the woods and the brook beyond. Particularly in the summer, when they were plush with foliage, the trees softened the lines and angles of their surroundings, tidy rows of planting fields, pitched roofs of barns and houses, the straight black ribbon of asphalt that insists itself upon the terrain. The girth of their trunks said they had been present to generations of humans, animals, birds, plants. Theirs was a living history no human record could approximate. Their presence helped define that landscape for me. Now their stumps are weathered to a steely gray, but their absence can still feel as fresh as the day I first found they were gone. My mind continues to see them where they were, as they were, until I round the bend and see the open sky. Stepping into the foyer of my childhood home, looking up into the kitchen, light streams through the window above the sink. There is too much sky. Missing from view is the shape of my mother, backlit by the sun, turning from the sink to welcome me home. "Oh, hi, honey, how are you?" Missing is the softness of her as she embraces me for a kiss, and her scent, freshly scrubbed and perfumed with Chanel No. 5 or Yves Saint Laurent's opium, warm and spicy and Mom. It is nearly 2 years since she died. Still, I expect to see her at the sink, facing out to the gardens and the woods beyond, rinsing dishes or preparing a meal, or making any one of myriad gestures inscribed on my heart. Sometimes I do see her, in the same way I still see the maples. She is casual in her buffalo check shirt and jeans, adjusting the kitchen table to make room for her guests, turning to offer a mug of tea, a bowl of fresh berries. Her smile flashing, a giggle flushing her cheeks, brown eyes shining with pleasure and perhaps a little bit of mischief. She is shorter now with age, looking up into my face for signs that I am happy or stressed or tired, touching the stone in the necklace at my throat and admiring its color, asking for its name. I see her small hands, so like her own mother's hands, unpolished nails trimmed to hug the tips of fingers knotted with arthritis, knuckles a little chapped and red. Her dark hair, somewhat thinner now, is cropped into her trademark pixie and frames her open face, her soft and luminous skin. Handwritten notes are still stuck to the fridge in her neat cursive, as distinctive as a fingerprint. She is here and she is not here. Her energetic imprint etched into every inch of this place I will always know as home. People gravitated to my mother's optimism and positivity. On the evening of her wake, despite the sleet and ice of a January storm, the room was full of people whose lives she had touched. The impression was of her warmth and joy brimming in those she left behind, uplifting us as she had always done. Sometimes my mother had seemed to me naive about the cruel realities of the world, and sometimes it seemed to me she had willfully looked away from them. Now that she is gone, as our world spirals deeper into political instability, war, and climate catastrophe, I appreciate how, like those great maples, she offered to all who knew her a quiet, steady, and reliable presence in which to rest, be held, get fed, feel safe.
Thank you, Kristen. All right. Anyone have anything to say? Cynthia's saying goodbye. Goodbye.
I love that piece. I love your writing. It was so good to hear your voice.
Thank you. Wonderful to see you, Cynthia.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
To Kristen? Is this you on the cover?
No, no.
Why did you?
Are you sure?
I'm sure. Yeah.
When I saw the book, I thought that's Kristen and her cat.
Oh my God.
Your piece was beautiful.
Thank you, Elena. So is yours. Your heart for that city just touches me so, so deeply every time.
It's a very abusive relationship.
Mm. Mm.
We're all in it.
Yeah.
I'm really appreciating everything I'm hearing. I've read your pieces and loved them then, but to hear it read in your voice with a little bit of introduction and personal information was really special. So thank you guys.
I would just like to add that I don't really believe that that's not Kristen on the cover.
I want to say something about the two pieces. Ruth, I felt very moved by your work and the devotion of 10 years. I think that's what you said, 10 years that you've been doing this. And the idea that we could have places to mourn, dedicated to mourning in nature. I know that's not quite what you're aiming at, or maybe it is, but I love the fractured nature of the photographs and the ghostly nature. It's like everything is still here, even though it's not here. And that's like your piece, Kristen, the absence, the absence is everywhere. And I always just feel like if we could tap into that may be the spirits. So I'm really touched about how present your mother is for you. And at the same time, how absent, too much sky. It's very moving. Thank you.
I really thought about the contrast between, Kristen, you're writing about a person who's gone and me sitting with the trees. And I couldn't really read all about that because in 5 minutes I didn't know what to do. But I've been doing it for at least now 14 years. But I wrote that piece a decade ago, and the trees are still partly there, but they keep changing. And when you were reading, I kept thinking of how palpable your mother was through your words and the difference and the little traces that almost seemed on the refrigerator or whatever. But the difference between that and a tree that's still there, but constantly changing and new things. And in both cases, like in the tree, new things start growing. And from your mother's energy, new things start growing.
Ruth, that makes me think of Elena's piece and the gardening in a place that is so fraught with complication and demographic problems and race issues, and yet the plants grow, and yet there's too much sky, but there is sky. And yet, Ruth, and your images of the trees and the fragmentation and the death of the trees and creating these places to mourn. I'm oddly, as I listen, the opposite of grief-stricken, but I am filled with the presence of what is created when there is that space that in which people are actually allowed to create something with their grief. And Kristen, you have created these beautiful memories, and the mother reaching out to touch the stone at your neck and asking about it and its color. And I think for our time, these pieces are just perfect. So thank you all. And I also have to say that in the editing process, I spent a lot of time with these. This was one section I looked at closely, and so it's really lovely to hear them all being so beautifully rendered in voice. So thank you.
Yeah, I second that. It is wonderful to hear them being read. And God, we published a lot of really amazing writing.
And I just, Ruth, I want to thank you for your devotion and your honoring of the trees, and the creating places to mourn. In addition to being an honoring for the trees, it feels like such a service to humanity, such a generous invitation to something I think many of us walk around not even knowing that we need. It's really beautiful, really life affirming. I think about what Cynthia read from Martine Prechtel about what will create more life. And there's a way in which by acknowledging our grief, sharing our grief. There's something so intimate about placing it inside the tree that is very life affirming in a way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, beautifully said, Kristen. That's so true. Did you have anything to, looks like you're about to say something, Ruth.
I actually just thank you. I wasn't.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, let us proceed. I'm a little worried that Erica hasn't showed up. She was supposed to have been here by now. She had a kid to put to bed, so. But Susan Marsh is going to be our next reader.
Okay, thank you. Just to introduce this, I was moved by an experience. I spent some time one fall in North Dakota along the Missouri River, just watching the geese and the ducks and the cranes and the pelicans. And the cranes in particular, I've always had an affinity for, but I saw my one and only whooping crane with a bunch of sandhills when they went over. And so that's partly where this poem came from. And it was probably stimulated right after that by a public reading that we did at a local wildlife museum, where we took pictures that were displayed in the museum to write about. And I was drawn to the ones that felt like elegies for endangered species. And so I picked Audubon's his poem was, I mean, his painting is called Whooping Crane, but it's really a picture of a sandhill crane. So maybe he hadn't seen one either. So anyway, that's introduction. Elegy for the Cranes. Reed grass sloughs, covers of cottonwood and ash, buffalo berry embroidering a ditch with threads of crimson fruit. October spreads its wings, yearning for the sky's embrace. Land flattens under cumulus and light. Blood-red lines of sunrise blend into a ruddy streak. By noon, the wind has turned, strong and from the north. Primeval music tumbles from the vacant blue, and all at once the sky holds columns of grace. Dozens of sandhill cranes calling as they climb the invisible staircase of the wild Dakota sky. One, at the far tip of a long V of birds, is white. Its wings ply the air like canvas sails, their hems dipped in the blackest ink. Sunset lingers, empty without cranes. The prairie sky was made for their millions, its silence meant for their cries. Twilight's fading violet shrouds forgotten flickering pathways. But tomorrow the sunrise will bleed again, and the midday sky will wait the only way it knows, arms open, ardent, filled with light.
Hmm. Hmm.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
Ah. All right, Sue is on next.
I'd just like to comment on Susan's before I read because I love sandhill cranes so much and I thought you captured them so beautifully. And I just love the line, the prairie sky was made for their millions.
Mm.
I think that applies to, so it's just an elegy right there for
Yeah,
everything that we've lost. It's a beautiful, beautiful line. And it's so sad that that's where we are and that we miss the millions that were here and we miss them. So thank you.
Mm.
I used to live in Gainesville, Florida, and sandhills would overwinter with the Coopers down there. And when they came over in February to head back west, it was just such an occasion, which I think is all the movements of the birds are. But I'm reading about black bears today, and I am really sorry to say that although I wrote this piece 9 years ago, um, we are right back there again, facing another bear hunt in Florida. And so it's really sad. But this was a beautiful thing that a group of us did with our grief. It makes me think of yours, Ruth.
I actually asked Chris if how would you feel if we displayed some of the images?
Oh, I wish you would. I don't have them here, so I wish you would,
Great.
because it was very visual. Despite a court appeal, dozens of demonstrations, and 40,000 letters of protest, despite impassioned editorials in every major Florida newspaper, and without regard for the opposition of 3/4 of the state's human population who still feel the same way, nearly 300 wild bears, including 36 lactating mothers, were gunned down in a recreational hunt in Florida from the northern panhandle to the Ocala National Forest in late October of 2016. The event was strong-armed by Florida's governor and his appointed wildlife commissioners, a state-sanctioned slaughter of Florida's black bears. We hoped the bears would be wily and escape the bullets of the hunters, but baited and tempted with corn, birdseed, and glazed donuts, they didn't stand a chance. So how could we respond to the brutal slaying of animals only just recovering from threatened status? What gesture could we devise to transform our grief and our outrage, knowing that 60 traumatized and orphaned cubs still wandered the woods? How would we reset a moral compass in a state that presently appears to have none? So you can see it's still true. And so we gathered a group of musicians, artists, and spiritual leaders, mostly women, and we created a memorial service, not much different than we would have if the mass murder had targeted human victims. On the morning of the requiem, I dreamed of 8 bears with all manner of coats, some spotted, some gold, some brown. The animals pressed against the glass windows and the doors of the church where we held the service, apparently gathering with us. Our ritual began with the procession of artists wearing handmade masks, deer, bear, wolf, bird, creeping and stalking down a central aisle to the beat of a single drum. The artists carried a larger-than-life bear with a bejeweled head and a body sewn of tawny fabric. That's the one in the middle. The bear was laid on a woodsy altar overarched with tall bamboo and grapevine and strewn with baskets of flowers, acorns, shells, and blueberries. We designed the requiem to help our community move through grief to a stand of advocacy and recommitment. Near the close of the ritual, we invited the audience to take part in a special communion. From baskets, we chose flowers to adorn the symbolic bear. We ate blueberries, sharing the sweet taste of a favorite bear food. And each of us present selected a bear paw shell collected from a local beach, a reminder of our pledge to stand with the bears. My grief right now is that this is going to happen again. That is just like, and it's not even so much the recreational hunters this time. They're the sort of the proud boys of this movement. What's really happening in our state is that the rich want to develop. And if there's a threatened species such as a bear on their land, that slows the process, if not bring it to a stop. So to fight this, we have to be able to tackle the whole system. And the Requiem is part of that, but what a bigger job we have to do. So I wish that we had the film of what that looked like, that procession and everything. But
Christy, can you go down and show the last one?
thank you so much for bringing those in, because I think the visual of this was what made it
Because
so
there's
powerful.
also there's an image of the people, but that didn't get shown. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
So they carried that. We have amazing artists there, and this one, if you show that picture of me, you can see one of the masks. She made these beautiful, beautiful masks to honor them. So think of the black bears. Hmm.
Yeah, well, let's just take a moment for both Susan and Sue, because both of you are writing about animals who are endangered. And it's funny because it's true that Sue mostly writes about birds. And this time it wasn't birds.
Yeah, well, we have in our state a rather backward um, attitude toward predators in general. So, what a heartbreaking story, Sue, that you had to tell. And the likelihood of it being repeated is just so outrageous.
Thanks, Susan. And still, we have to honor the beauty of those things that are still with us.
Yeah.
We don't have to, we're privileged to.
Yeah, well, that's how Cynthia opened us up. That feels so important.
Yeah.
And I guess a requiem is the music of grief, isn't it?
Mhm. We had beautiful music. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know where Erica is, and I yeah, good point. DP2YMH.
Oh, that's me.
No, that's who is more predatory than develop. I know. So I don't know why this is, because we always have been running out of time, but I think you've all been so incredibly good at sticking to your 5-minute limit. I think some of you were under. So we have a half hour and only one reader unless Erica shows up. So yeah, Elena.
I was just going to ask a question to, I think it's Ruth. My regarding the pinon trees.
What's your question?
What happened to them?
Well, it's complicated. There were 350 million trees died in the early 2000s. And it's partly said that there were actually more than there used to be because of grazing, and then a lot of water. I mean, they actually had a wet period. But basically what happened is they had a drought. And the bark beetles come when there's drought. And but it's still continuing on, and there's, even though I mean, this is the scientist's view, even though that originally some of the loss may have been because there had been a wet period and there was more than usual, there's now worries about whether there'll be any, it's like pinyon juniper, but all you see is juniper. So if the climate keeps getting hotter, there won't be many pinyons at all in a lot of their range, and they really are like the keystone species for innumerable birds and animals and people.
Thank you.
There simply are no more words. It's just the grief, just the weight of the grief with the beauty of what has been shared this evening. So thank you all.
And we need music, actually. I wish we could close out with some music. Andrea, do you have your piano there? Could you come up with something you could play when we're finished? I bet you could, actually.
I could, yes, I could.
All right. That's what's going to happen. That's how we're going to close out then.
Okay.
All right. And if Erica doesn't show up, you will be closing us out, Nora.
Like right now?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, you're next. You're next.
yeah. I was going to say though, if Erica doesn't show up, that we could wait, or I didn't know what you wanted to do. I'm reading for this from paper copy instead of online, which I realized might have been a better idea, but so I know you're there, even though I'm looking down. And you know, Susan's piece about the bears, this is kind of, this piece is, connects in with the whole issue of hunting and the old ways. And I don't say this because I've honed this down to 5 minutes, but in the end, I talk about my ambivalence about what I'm doing and yet how deeply called I am to do it. And still there, it begs the question of whether whether that's reason enough to be working with these hides. So, because obviously the deer have been hunted. So this is called Fleshing the Hide. Home now, or was that home? And what did I carry home from New Hampshire beside the dried and unworked hide now tacked to the board? The yearling doe hide, who was flesh, who was a fawn, who was a wet and gangling newborn, who was carried and loved, who was the meeting of an egg and a sperm, who was a longing, who was a possibility, no more, who was sighted, shot, skinned, quartered, or bled out to age the meat, whose skin under my hands was fleshed and grained and soaked and smoked and will be stretched again and again over the coming winter, my hands raw and bleeding, whose lovely head might be one of the many in a large vat of heads that will feed chickadee and vulture and coyote. I enter after the kill, after the hunter's early rising, the coffee and eggs, the toast at the local diner before filling up the thermos, heading out to the woods, before climbing up into the tree stand, before the waiting, before the sighting, before the shot. I arrive after the soft crumple, the violent spasm, the instant death, the slow one. I arrive after the tents have been pitched, the food delivered to the kitchen, the smokehouse fires lit, the selection of the hide carefully saved for me. After the morning prayers and coffee and smokes, I arrive into the temporary village, too gentle a term for all that has happened before me. Children run about, dogs prance, showing off prized legs of deer, or wait hopefully for bits of fat to fall to the ground. Like a paper doll inserted into a scene, I arrive to that small village of men and women hunched over fleshing beams. The dull crescent moon blades working the hides in deep concentration so as not to tear the thin places, perhaps knowing the debt owed to the hide that might just as much have yearned to return to earth. How do we justify, understand what we do? A wise fool of a man once said, "The holy life, the sanctified life, is not one without trespass. It is knowing the debt we owe." And how do I carry that debt and all the debts owing to one small act of fleshing a hide on a snow squall morning in New Hampshire? It could make a woman crazy trying to keep count of all the ways she is indebted to that one morning and all the elements that came together to weave it. So many threads on the loom. The sun thought it a good idea to meet the earth as she again, graciously, even at such cost now, turn her face to him who some call grandfather. Wind joined in, swirling snow around us as we remembered with longing the old iron stove in the barn that someone thought to light with trees taken to keep us warm. Everyone is somebody's child. The tree, the child of the seed, the iron extracted from earth's core, forged with fire, and the fire fed too. So many debts. And the dead, I know, walk among us and within us, awakened by the aroma, this feast of the old ways, seeing through the plastic, the fleece, the thermal space age gear, taking their place in the circle of women, holding a large hide between them, stretching and working it, bouncing a child in the center. The dead entering the hands of the women, kneading the fibers apart as they did then. This is how, this is the motion, this is the way. Yes, I am sure the dead were there. Perhaps it was their idea. Let's give them a taste of how it used to be before thinsulate, before plastic and prefab houses, before the lie was told that the gods are dead. Let's make them hungry for us. And so I fleshed up and down, listening to the conversations among the young around me, yearning to find a way to live that makes sense. But I cannot remember a single word, just the motion, the debt, the hides, and the sturdy blonde woman walking the November field, playing the wailing bagpipes, and the men singing the high-pitched keening at the mother drum. Perhaps this is how remembering works. Do this, up and down, back and forth. Now you remember.
That was an amazing way to end. Anyone want to say anything before we go to music?
Yeah, it's beyond words. That was fabulous.
I can picture the hides in your women's temple in the altar, Nora. And I think that the way you were present for that is paying the debt. And the way that the others were too.
Mm.
I think the debt is really an important part of it. Yeah, and you did that.
Yeah, first of all, Sue, hearing your piece, I mean, it really is a wonderful example of public memorials, of which I think there are way too few. I read it a long time ago, but it was so wonderful to see all those images. And Nora, I kind of related to your piece. I've just been walking with sequoias, which is another tree I walk with, and I generally avoid going in hunting season. I actually was walking with pinyons first, and I was they're lower elevation, and I was a little worried. And particularly when I went off trail, I was like, put a big orange shirt over me. And then I talked to this one bow hunter. And these are places that I normally, especially the first place with the pinyons, I've never seen anybody else there. And it was interesting to feel both my fear about them and also really see their humanity, particularly for a bow hunter who was actually really concerned about why the trees were dying, which of course you can't hunt if there's nothing for the animals to eat. But the way that you, and I also think when I was at Santa Fe and there was an indigenous woman there who was working a hide, and I just felt like you dealt with the complexity in a way that was very honoring and very helpful in this time when things feel so polarized.
Thank you, Susan and Ruth, for your comments. Appreciate it. It is really complicated. Yeah.
Well, I thought before, Andrea, you are going to play us something. That's fabulous. And I just thought before you do, because Erica couldn't make it, her piece is also called Requiem. Requiem in the Key of Bees. And the first line is the signs of it in the bees, without any doubt, nearer and nearer. But the last two lines, I just thought this would be a good note to end on before we move to music, are sing as we walk. It makes the trip less painful. It's true for bees as it is for human beings. Oh, talk about improvisation.
Actually, I thought, well, yes. I'd like to say something about the piano being detuned recently. I heard that the sound of a piano, the tuning is normally 440, which is the universal tuning for all instruments. But I've heard that 432 is more in sync with nature. So I had my piano tuner detune the piano so that it's dropped to 432. You might notice a slight difference. My experience, and I mention this because we've been talking in this dropped place of grief this evening, where the body has the experience. The body knows the grief and moves it. So when you invited me to play, Lisa, what I heard was a snatch of a bit of a composition I did when I was doing major grieving and writing about the world a couple of winters ago. So I've pulled this out. It's just a snatch of a longer piece, And I'm going to play it twice so you can hear it almost like a cycle.
Great. Hmm.
Thank you, Andrea.
Completely beautiful.
My pleasure.
That was the music of grief. I'm so sorry Cynthia couldn't be here, but she'll hear it in the recording. Thank you, everyone, so much. You've all
Thank
been
you.
wonderful participating and reading. And thank you so much to Chris, our tech person. It was a little complicated tonight, but we did it. So wonderful. And our last event is December 7th. We haven't decided if it's afternoon or evening, but I hope to see some of you then.